Welcome to this explainer. So I want you to think for a second about just how incredibly fast the world of higher education is shifting right beneath our feet. We're talking about a technology so disruptive that in literally just months, it's forced centuries-old institutions to completely rethink what it even means to be a scholar. I'm super excited to guide you through this material today because, honestly, we're looking at a massive structural paradigm shift happening across universities globally. We're diving into a recent workshop designed for academic leaders and researchers all about artificial intelligence in higher ed. And look, this isn't just about learning a new software tool to save a few minutes. No way. This is about fundamentally reshaping how knowledge is created, taught, and assessed. The big theme here? Learning and unlearning. So buckle up, because we're going to unpack exactly what that means for the future of education.
Let's just dive right into a really provocative question. What actually happens when AI knows more than the professor? Historically, a lecturer or a supervisor held this position of absolute knowledge authority. They were the ultimate gatekeepers. They had simply read more, studied longer, and frankly, knew more than their students. But AI, it disrupts this model directly and aggressively. We now have systems capable of reasoning and generating these massive volumes of highly specific content, sometimes way more than an individual supervisor could personally produce in a lifetime. Just imagine the momentary panic a seasoned professor feels when a first-year undergrad uses AI to pull together a flawless, comprehensive literature gap that the professor themselves hadn't even thought of. It's a total gut check. Junior researchers and students now have the exact same access to the synthesized knowledge as senior academics. So this creates an immediate crisis of authority. Now, expertise definitely isn't obsolete, but the traditional foundation of a professor's authority, that absolutely has to be reconsidered from the ground up.
And hey, if you think academia can just, wait this out or bury its head in the sand until the fad passes, well, the data tells a very different story. There has been an explosive, and I mean literally explosive, 70% growth in student use of generative AI tools. Overall AI usage in higher ed jumped by an estimated 55% in just the past 12 months alone. Right now, we're looking at around 60% of all academic staff and students using these tools in some capacity. The genie is completely out of the bottle, and it's already granted everyone's wish for instant information. There is absolutely no going back to the old ways. That means there's a critically urgent need for educators to adapt to this new reality right now, or risk becoming entirely irrelevant to how their students actually learn.
To really get how we arrived here, we can trace this evolution of university tech through three broad phases. First up was digitalization. Think back to the early 2000s, right? We had learning management tools like Blackboard that basically just acted as static, clunky digital filing cabinets. They didn't really do anything, they just held you PDFs. Then we moved into integration. This is where early basic AI tools were woven into teaching, though honestly, pretty unevenly. Think automated grading or basic plagiarism checkers. But now we're entering a totally different era, the era of human-AI collaboration and agentic AI. We're moving so fast away from passive, one-directional tools and toward genuinely intelligent, adaptive systems that act as active, collaborative agents working right alongside researchers and educators as actual peers.
Now, this fundamental transition is the absolute core focus of our explainer today. We have to make the move from the lecturer as a knowledge authority to the lecturer as a facilitator. That outdated sage on the stage model, where the professor stands at a podium and passively broadcasts info to a room full of frantically note-taking students, is completely dead. Instead, the educator has to become an active mentor and a dynamic guide. So what does a facilitator actually do? Well, instead of just talking at students for an hour, a facilitator designs interactive challenges. They help students write better, more sophisticated AI prompts. A facilitator might even pull up an AI's output in real time and critique its logic, its biases, or its formatting right there in front of the whole class. You aren't just handing down facts anymore, you're actively guiding students through a student-centered environment where they bring their own AI-assisted tools into the conversation.
And this dynamic shift completely changes what the classroom relationship looks like. It's no longer just this simple two-party street between the educator and the student. It's now fundamentally a three-way relationship: the student, the teacher, and the AI. The student uses AI, the teacher uses AI, and the whole learning relationship is built entirely around that shared, collaborative use. Now, mediating this new space, it requires a massive ego check. You aren't competing with the AI to see who knows more. You're teaching the student how to orchestrate the AI. Honestly, if you're an educator and you aren't explicitly teaching AI ethics, tool selection, and proper usage as part of your core supervision, you're actually underserving your students. Your new role is to mediate this shared space and treat the AI as a teaching partner, a dedicated tutor, and a learning companion.
So if we break down how this actually plays out in practical academic research, the numbers tell a pretty clear story. Roughly 35% of AI used by researchers goes straight into literature searching and synthesis. Another 35% goes to complex data analysis, 25% to writing assistance, and about 10% to other administrative tasks. Tools like Elicit and ResearchRabbit, they are absolute game changers for the modern academic. I mean, they can read, synthesize, cross-reference, and summarize a massive stack of PDF articles so incredibly fast that a literature review that used to take months of agonizing reading can now be drafted in a fraction of the time. This massive time saver frees researchers up to spend their actual energy on higher-order evaluation, creative analysis, and real innovation, instead of just basic repetitive data gathering.
This brings us right to the core framework of the workshop, learning and unlearning. The presenters made it very clear that these are independent, continuous, and equally necessary processes. You can't just layer a bunch of flashy new AI skills on top of an unchanged, stubborn teaching practice. It just doesn't work. Acquiring new competencies has to go hand in hand with deliberately discarding outdated assumptions. You literally have to unlearn the ego of traditional teaching to make room for these collaborative workflows. Think about it. If you cling to the idea that real learning only happens when a student is staring at a blank page with a pencil, you're going to be entirely unable to teach them how to thrive in an AI-augmented world.
So, what exactly needs to be tossed out? First, those passive, lecture-based teaching models we talked about earlier. Seriously, put the podium away. Second, you have to drop the assumption that you're the sole source of knowledge in the room. And third, and guys, this is a massive paradigm shift, product-only assessment. We have to completely unlearn the habit of just grading a final, finished essay or a take-home chapter. Because AI can effortlessly handle lower-order stuff like sentence construction and basic editing, assessments now have to examine the process itself. For instance, an oral defense of how a student used AI to outline their essay, or maybe a detailed log of the prompts they used to generate a thesis. That is now far more valuable than just reading the perfectly polished essay itself. We've got to evaluate the journey, not just the destination.
But okay, let's address the elephant in the room here. Technology resistance. It's a very common, very human defense mechanism, especially in academia. The presenters explicitly warned against using buzzwords like ethics, critical thinking, or human judgment as reflexive excuses to just avoid engaging with AI tools altogether. Basically, they're saying don't hide behind a vague claim of ethics to mask your personal fear of the technology. The recommended professional approach? Actually try a platform first. Open it up, play around, figure out how it works, test its limits. Only then should you engage in a genuine, informed, ethical evaluation of its use. Because prohibiting something right out of the gate just because you don't understand it, that's kind of the exact opposite of the academic spirit.
Okay, so once you let go of those old habits, what do you actually need to learn? Well, digital and AI literacy are just table stakes at this point. But beyond that, you need highly developed skills in critical evaluation and validation. AI systems have severe limitations, right? They can and absolutely will confidently generate entirely incorrect information, what we call hallucinations. So educators have to rapidly transition into curators and strict validators of AI-generated knowledge. Checking for these hallucinations and modeling true ethical citizenship are literally the daily practical tasks of this new facilitator role. You have to actively show your students how to use these tools responsibly, rigorously, and transparently, rather than just, turning a blind eye and crossing your fingers that they don't cheat.
All of this points toward a really powerful new professional identity, the AI-augmented researcher. This is an academic who is informed, evidence-based, and above all else, highly adaptable. Just think about the traditional academic path for a second. You spend 30 years mastering one incredibly specific niche, drilling deeper and deeper, essentially acting as this static, individual expert standing all alone on an island. But learning agility flips that entirely. The AI-augmented researcher is a collaborative facilitator. Today's academic has to master the ability to quickly pick up, evaluate, and integrate entirely new tools into a personal toolbox that's constantly being tailored to their specific research tasks. In short, they adapt to the environment instead of demanding the environment adapt to them.
Now, of course, we've got to acknowledge that it's not perfectly smooth sailing. There are very real, very significant risks here that require urgent institutional governance. We're talking about severe algorithmic bias, where an AI might inadvertently amplify existing societal prejudices, or maybe narrow our exposure to diverse non-mainstream theories. Then there are the persistent threats of academic dishonesty, the danger of over-reliance that slowly erodes a student's own critical thinking muscles, and let's not forget serious data privacy concerns when you're feeding sensitive research into commercial models. This is exactly why universities urgently need formal AI policies and strict oversight, rather than just loose, informal guidelines. Northwest University in South Africa was actually specifically cited in the workshop as a pioneering example for successfully adopting a formal, comprehensive AI policy to navigate these exact dangers responsibly.
I really want you to focus on this fundamental idea that came out of the workshop: humans with AI, not humans versus AI. The presenters made this brilliant argument that asking if academics are going to be replaced by AI is entirely the wrong question. The central challenge facing higher education today isn't technological, it's epistemological. It's about how knowledge is actually produced and validated in the first place. When human researchers collaborate effectively with AI tools, they produce stronger, more robust research and much better outcomes than either the human or the machine could ever produce alone. It's an incredibly powerful synergy if it's harnessed correctly.
So, I'll leave you with this question to chew on. Are you ready to step down from the stage and facilitate the future? Finding success in this new era requires a deep willingness to keep learning, to stay highly adaptive, and to remain both critical and innovative. Transitioning from a solitary authority figure to a collaborative facilitator, that isn't a demotion in any way. It's an incredibly exciting evolution of the educator's role. So take a hard, honest look at your own daily practices. What do you need to learn today? And more importantly, what ego and habits do you need to unlearn? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope this conversation leaves you eager to explore the incredible, transformational potential of AI in your own work.